Welcome back to another edition of Tuesday's Thoughts. So good to see you, even though I can't see you. Well, tonight's topic is after the spill. Before we jump in, as usual, you know what I'm going to say. Go ahead, like, share, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Raise your hand if you have ever heard the saying, you can't cry over spilt milk, or there's no use crying over spilt milk. You can raise your hand in the comments. Basically what that very old saying translates to, it really means there's absolutely no use in getting upset over a situation that has happened and that you can do nothing about. Literally, you have no control over it. It's already taken place. And as you can visualize in your mind, if you're talking about a glass of milk, if the milk has already spilt out of the glass, the saying is, there's no use getting upset about it. It's happened, and there's literally nothing you can do about it. There's nothing that you can do to change it. So it's not helpful to sit there and wallow and cry and lament the fact that you have this glass of spilt milk. Okay, you can't change the situation. And so as we walk through this thought, I want you to think about, dead issues in your life, perhaps dead relationships, just dead ends in general, things that have already taken place, whether it was somehow in your control or not, outside of your control, but they've already happened, and literally there's nothing you can do to change them. So as I say, that phrase, you can't cry over spilt milk, or you shouldn't cry over spilt milk, is not uncommon. It's a very common one. But tonight I want us to consider the why of that. So why shouldn't we cry over spilt milk? Why not cry over it? It was my milk and I spilled it. Why shouldn't I cry over it? Well, let's think about that. And I'm certainly, I guess I'll give this little disclaimer before I dig deeper into it. There are obviously those situations, the loss of a loved one and things that are really serious, where absolutely there is a necessary time of grieving. Okay, it's required that you grieve and that you cry and so on. So I'm not really talking about that. Let's sort of broaden the scope a little bit, and just talk about those situations of day-to-day life, things that happen along the way where you find yourself kind of stuck, right, in this process of crying over something that's happened. So why not cry over the spilt milk? Well, number one, it can change your disposition when you're crying over that spilt milk, but it can't really change the situation itself. Sometimes if you hang in a position too long of where you're literally lamenting and belaboring some dead thing, some dead issue, it can literally drive you into a negative state. We've talked a lot about, just depression and things like that. If you stay in that situation of crying over the spilt milk too long, something that you can't change, it can change your mindset, it can change your mentality, and it can lead you into a not so healthy place. But all at the same time, it's not changing anything. The situation won't change. The second thing, as far as why not to cry over a dead situation or the spilt milk, is that you're using up valuable energy, basically trying to rack your brain on how things could have been done differently, right? How many times have we done that? You've experienced a negative situation, or you've had some kind of upset, devastation, a disappointment, and you're there just, if only I, right? Or you're trying to rack your brain on how could this thing have been done differently? How could you have had a different outcome, right? The shoulda, coulda, woulda. I should have done this. I would have done this. I could have done this if I had known it differently. And you're using up all of this valuable time and all of this valuable energy focusing, as I say, on that thing that has already happened and that you literally have no control over. It is of no value. It is of no effect for you to dwell there. And finally, why not to cry over the spilt milk? If it was spoiled, right, it essentially wasn't good for you, okay? Maybe the reason why it spilt in the first place was because it really was not in God's plan for you. It was not a part of his design. And so, in fact, what looks like a disappointment was actually God working things out on your behalf to avoid a more devastating situation. I'm sure I don't have to tell you what might happen if you were to drink a glass of spoiled milk. Now, hopefully you would have discerned or detected before you gulped down the glass that it was spoiled, but it could lead to physical ramifications, physiological things. You can make yourself sick if you were to drink a spoiled glass of milk. And so consider, well, why would I cry over it? Why would I lament over this thing if really this was God's way of protecting me from something, right? It's a disappointment in my eyes is based on what I see now on the surface, but maybe this was just a detour that was divinely designed. So really, I don't need to cry over it because thank God he was seeing what I could not see. After looking at these reasons, insofar as not crying over the spilt milk because you can't change it anyway. You can't unspill the milk. You can't, re-pour. You just can't reverse the process. The question then becomes, which is our topic for tonight, what happens after the spill? What do you do? And as I'm speaking, I'm hoping you're really grounding this in, personalize it and think back to a situation. We've all had situations in our life, which, as I say, we wish we could, maybe turn back the hands of time and do things differently. But hopefully we were able to grow through them and grow past them, right? And overcome them. But I want to just share, what about after the spill? So you recognize that you spilt your glass of milk, the proverbial glass of milk. Could be juice, could be water. You've spilt it. What do I do if I have a spilt milk situation in my life? I am so glad you asked. The first thing that you want to do is to clean up the mess. Clean up the mess. It's no secret that if you've kept a glass of milk out of the fridge for too long, eventually it'll start to smell bad. And that happens because there's an overgrowth in the bacteria. Now, why would you want to languish in a stinky mess? Okay, it's becoming putrid. It's starting to smell your situation up. So it behoves you to clean it up. I remember a situation, and I'll add to that, clean it up right away. The sooner you clean it up, the better it is for you. Why? I remember a situation in this might have been probably my first car when I was a student in school. And I remember somebody actually spilt milk in the car. And it was carpeted. And this unfortunately happened without my knowing. I learned after that the milk had been spilled. And so you can imagine my dismay. After a couple of days, I'm like, what is that smell in the car? Took it to the car wash. And, I'm like, what is that? What's going on? Only to find out that there had been some sour milk that had been spilt on the back floor, on the floor of the back seat. Okay? Had that mess been cleaned up right away or sooner, I might not have had to endure that languishing smell. I literally had to leave the windows down for days. It was horrible. So the first thing you want to do when you recognize a situation of spilt milk in your life, do what you can to clean up the mess. The second thing, after the spill, check your approach. What do I mean by that? Well, consider why it might have spilled in the first place. Were you maybe negligent in handling your glass of milk? Was there something about how you tried to maybe pour the milk? Something about how you handled the situation? Sometimes there are situations in our life, even blessings, might I say, The Lord has blessed us in certain ways in our lives, and we've unfortunately mishandled that blessing. We've mishandled that thing, and it results in us experiencing a spill, so to speak. So it begs the question for you to take some time after you see that you've spilt your glass of milk, that situation, that circumstance in your life. How might I have approached this differently? How might I have handled my glass or my container of milk differently such that I could have avoided the spill? Maybe it was an error in judgment. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe you've experienced a significant mistake in your life, right? Maybe it was a missed moment or a missed opportunity, somewhere that or somehow you've sold yourself short. How might I have handled the situation differently in order that I might have prevented the spill? And then the final thing, okay? So after the spill, we're talking about after we've recognized it. We said, number one, clean up the mess. Number two, check your approach. The third thing, just pour another glass. Pour another glass of milk, right? Sometimes the tragedy of that spilt milk situation, it's not so much the crying over it, but it's actually staying in a situation, it's staying in that sort of situation of anguish or despair about it, and deciding that, well, it's spilt, that's it, my one glass of milk, it's spilt, I'm done, I'm no longer dealing with this anymore, it's never gonna work out, I'm done. That's a greater tragedy than actually crying over the spilt glass. If you were to walk away from what could have been and what should have been, maybe something purposeful in your life, but because it's spilt in that first instance, you're kind of done and over with it. No, brother, sister, pour yourself another glass of milk. Go to the fridge, get up, walk to the fridge. Consider the resources that you have. How can you maybe try again? There's a song we learn as kids, if that's first, you don't succeed, try and try again. It seems simplistic, right? But it works. It's actually a principle that's applicable in every stage and phase of our life. I'm not going to sit there crying over it. Yes, I might have cleaned it up and so on. I've checked my approach, but now it's time for me to pour another glass. Pour another glass of milk. There's always room to start again. You can start over. And hopefully you're not starting from scratch. Sometimes you may have to start from scratch, but don't be discouraged by the spilt milk. Literally, there's nothing that you can do to backtrack it. So let me just pour another glass. And you might be saying to me, Claudine, that was the last glass in the juice jug or in the milk jug. That's okay. Go ahead and pour you some water. Pour some water. Fix the situation. That's the bottom line. Do not stay there and lament over the situation. And as I said, I trust that you are considering how this can apply to a situation that you might have experienced recently or that you might actually be experiencing now. Get up, move forward, clean up the mess, move forward, pour yourself another glass. Let's anchor the thought in some text, as is the custom here. Let's go to St. Matthew chapter 6 and verse 27. And I'll just leave this very brief scripture with you for you to consider as we sort of tie all this up. And it says, can all of your worries add a single moment to your life? And another version says, can any one of you, by worrying, add a single hour to your life? Okay? By sitting there, contemplating, worrying, crying, being upset about this glass that you treasured, okay? It was meant to nourish you. It's something good. It represents something good in your life. And something negative happened to see that milk overturn. By worrying about it, by focusing on it, by poring over it, by concentrating on it, can you change it? No, you can't change it. So why worry? Why sit there? Why expend the time? Get up, clean it up. Clean it up, dry it up, fix the circumstance, fix the situation. Think about it, learn through it, grow through it, and pour yourself another glass. Thanks so much for tuning in. My prayer for you, as always, is that the peace of God will be with you. Until we see you again next time, may God bless you.